I actually live that very carefully, where people tell me information and that's it. It stays there. It's confidential. Or I just got my November. I'm number 4 in the brokerage this year. Start with your own business plan. What is your business goals for this month? What is your business goals for next week? What is your business goals for 2025? And once you have that plan, it's so important to stick with it with flexibility. You're going to get someone who you can trust. You're going to get someone who has a drawer full of keys of non-clients. They're just friends and family. You know, when you're going to list a property, I tell them, let's go through. I'm going to walk through the property. I'm going to look, if I had a buyer right now, I'm going to point out things that I want my buyer to be aware of. So I'm going to tell you these things now, not to insult you, but to help you.
There are over 1.5 million real estate agents in the U.S. 87% of agents fail within the first 5 years. I sit down with the top percentile of agents that are killing it in this market right now. We're here to showcase, explain, and most importantly, decode the secrets that have propelled them to the top. What fuels their success? How are they turning their dreams into reality? Get ready, buckle up. This is the Agents with Grit podcast.
All right, so hey everybody. So we have John Gillen on the podcast today. And John is, his company brand is GillenPros.com is the website, right?
Yep.
And John, I know you're a man of many hats, which we'll kind of get into throughout this. But before we go into, I just want to kind of break down who John is and just how much of a badass he is. You know, he's a person that's been very successful. And I know we talked, well, you listed over 20 closings just in the last 12 months alone, right?
Yep.
Okay. And you've been,
I just got my November. I'm number 4 in the brokerage this year.
oh my God.
Not
Good
bad.
for you. Okay. Amazing. And 10 plus years, 1 to 5 million, would you say, per year has been the average for you, right?
Yes. Yeah. We've been doing very well with that.
Which is unbelievable. So I know we'll get into obviously how you have accomplished such success over, to the years of 10 years, right? To be able to close 20 plus, which is amazing. But before we dive into that, I want to get to know you. So like, John, where would you say your drive comes from for success?
Well, I always say I could be your kid's classroom teacher, guidance counselor, or school administrator. I started out going into the education world, and through the Catholic school system, and I saw the light in different ways, and I moved beyond the Catholic school system. And but that teacher in me, that counselor in me, that manager in me as an administrator has never really left. So anytime I can work with a client, I always say, okay, let's start at the very basics, and I basically teach them like they're one of my students. And it's amazing where even the most seasoned real estate professional experts who done investing, and they say, oh, I never thought about that. There's always something you can give them, and that's the beauty of always learning. And so I do try and bring in that educational component, as well as also to manage, because we know with mortgages and condo approvals and applications and deadlines and inspections and all the things that go into getting through a successful transaction. That needs some real insight and management and foresight so that people stay on top of their deadlines. They don't miss up on missing one deadline and then could potentially void a contract. So we work on that. I work with our clients to put together a calendar of plans, and we with our transaction dates, and even pre-listing is so important. I tell clients all the time is we don't necessarily have to race to get on the market yet. We know you're going to get on the market. Let's get you market ready. And, so we do a lot of research, and I share that market data with them so they can see why I'm making my decision, my recommendations to them. So I take that approach.
Can you go into your research beforehand? Like what does that look like for you and the client?
Well, of course, we start with a typical CMA. Which any realtor would know. We just, that gives you the basics of what's the hardcore, what is it, a 3-bedroom, 2-bath going for, in the half-mile radius. Okay, fine. We can all pull that data. What I like to do is I get involved in the community. I'm part of the Central Beach Alliance here in South Florida. I'm part of the Chamber of Commerce. I go to different leads groups. I belong to I go to as guests to other Chamber of Commerces in the neighboring communities. I'm on the advisory council for the mayor of Fort Lauderdale on his education council. So I do keep a pulse on what's happening in the neighborhoods. One of the things that I just challenged and we got through a nice referendum where we're actually closing schools here in South Florida. Unusual. And so being on the advisory board as a realtor, I said, wait a minute, that's amazing property. And I said, but wait a minute. We cannot let that property be sold to developers. We need to hold on to that property because in the future, we want to be able to entice and maybe bring back families and bring back children. And if we don't have that land, so we were able to, through that advisement, get the city council to agree. Whatever we do with those closed schools is not going to include selling. We're going to use it to reinvest into the community. And that's really what real estate should be about on all levels. It's reinvesting and repurposing, but making sure that we have it sustainable for the future. And that was our goal. So we achieved that this year. I was very proud of that, being on that committee. So it's keeping a sense of not just those CMA numbers, but also what is going on in the community. What businesses are coming? What businesses are leaving? What is attracting people from a Airbnb property investment? Short-term rentals were a big rage here, but they've definitely slowed down. But that doesn't mean they're not possible. And that's where we go in to really guide investors on how to do that right. We partner with other local vendors. We have a preferred vendor network that I have personally vetted, so that if we're going to give out a referral, and maybe we're not going to get their real estate transaction, but at least we're a go-to source for trust of an electrician or an attorney or a mortgage lender. And we like to offer those contacts and share those referrals because that's, we all help each other in this world.
Can you talk? So I know I did some research, you being in New York, right?
Yeah.
Now you've moved out to Florida, and how long ago was that?
I moved in 2017
Okay.
I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, and worked in for the last 11 years before I moved here. I worked in Staten Island, New York, which is it was a Catholic school city block. We were the largest school, church, and community center in the Archdiocese of New York City.
Amazing.
And
Okay.
I was the youngest business manager. They call me the parish manager. I was the youngest business manager. I was the youth minister working with kids. And I just saw all the maintenance issues were happening, and the technology that was rapidly growing, and the people who were my senior, they were all old enough to be my grandparents. Were looking to me now to help with everything from how to put this computer program on, and I just slowly evolved into the role. And when I left there, I reversed a operating deficit during the recession of 28 and 29, we wound up actually hitting and surpassing our fundraising goals. So budgets and fiscal management, which is how I got the bug to come to Florida. I used to do my budget here in Florida. I'd get on a plane and work on the budget without interruption here in Florida. And I'd say, I just loved it here so much. So,
Yeah. Was your toe in real estate at all in New York?
I grew up, it's funny you should say, I have this picture right here. This was my grandpa. That's his
Okay.
real estate office.
Oh,
That was
wow.
my first after school job. I would go there, and his back in the day, MLS was not online. There was no computers. He would go on Tuesdays and pick up the binders of all of the listings, the new listings to market, the sold listings. And our job was to go through the binders, A to Z, and all the different and take the loose leaf binder, the old ones out, and put them in. That was my first job in real estate. So I've always had my hand in real estate. My first property was a property I inherited from my grandfather. And I managed to turn that from from a summer rental, a summer home that we grew up and went to summers at on a lake, to an all year round property, gutted it, renovated it, the whole bit, and sold that off in 2014 as a preemptive to moving to Florida, knowing that it was time to let it go and to let real estate now work for me differently. And so I was able to now move into Florida and bought a condo and did very well with that. Watched the market. I was the president of the association. I said, but this building is not going to be sustainable into the long run. And so during COVID, I researched my current building where I'm at. And so I use everything I guide my clients with. I use myself.
Right.
And I just did a market analysis of the property I'm at, and I doubled my investment since 2020. And it'll probably go up a small fraction if I had to advise myself as a client. And so I'm carefully watching where the market is, for myself, as well as all my clients who are also in condos. And South Florida market is going to be saturated with condos that just cannot be afforded by the current occupants because of all the new assessments and laws that are being put into play. So I could go on forever on that whole.
Yeah. Well, I want to hear more about your story, because I mean, you obviously have a background just from your family. Your first job, right, was working with
Yeah.
your father, and then you moved down to Florida. You left a place that you obviously had very established roots,
Yes.
and you've bought a primary purchase, right, a
Yes.
condo that ended up being a very solid investment, and it just increased in valuation over a course of how many years would you
Yep.
say? What
I bought it in 2017. It was 168, $168,000, and I sold it in 2020, and it was at 213. The values of that
Amazing.
building continued to go up to 280. When I picked up the phone. I called my neighbor that was upstairs, actually an ex of mine. Called him up and I said, I don't know what your plans are, but the values are going to peak. And you told me at one point you were thinking about moving. And that's what I do as a realtor. You always remember where your clients are. What are their life milestones? What are they looking to? And I said, look, I don't know. I don't want to tell you what to do, but I'm going to give you the data. And he is the last highest priced condo that sold. And now 30% less, and they can't even sell them right now in that same building.
That gave me chills right there. That's like
So
you
I just
timed the
calculated that over
market
the weekend, not
perfectly.
knowing that you were going to ask that question. Over the weekend, I just calculated that, and it was it's probably a different notebook that I had, but it was 30% less, 29 point something percent. We'll round it to 30. And one of the contracts, one of the listings is actually a client that left me this summer. Did not want to take my market advice. I said, if you really want to get out, unfortunately, you're going to have to take a loss. You won't take a total loss because you'll still make money from what you purchased it at. You're just not going to make as much as you thought you would.
Hmm.
But time is money, and money is very important, and they're still on the market.
And you had the data to back that
Yeah,
up. And you
to me, that's the best part. When I sit down and I go through the MLS and I look at my, some of my old former clients who left me because they didn't like my direct advice. I have to just say I get the last laugh
right.
because sadly I don't get the commission, but it's not just about that.
Yeah.
It's knowing that what I'm putting my time in doing and researching and networking and going to these meetings and listening and hearing what the trends are and staying involved with the state legislature. I ask realtors all the time, have you read any of the new laws? I'm like, which ones? I don't know. So I teach property management now. That I got into property management from real estate, and I teach it. I'm certified now for the state of Florida for the Real Estate Association to train for continuing ed classes about proper property management and to realtors. And so it's such people think they could just easily just manage a property, but are they managing the property or are they managing the investment? And are they helping that owner who may not live here understand that, what, we got to put this money in, we got to invest money to be able to up the value. And so it's interesting when you work with all different types of clients. Those who listen, they do very well. Those who don't, I wish them well.
Well, tell me, John, because obviously you're a wealth of knowledge, like an unbelievable amount of like involvement you have not only in your like local community, but reading into the laws and what's happening is something that puts you far ahead from the majority of agents that are out there, right? But how did you become that source? Like, how did you build your business? Because I know you mentioned you had a prior partner, right? And you just guided them, hey, this is what it is, this is what's happening, and you talked to them and they clearly took your advice. But how did you market yourself to become the expert in a market where you maybe didn't have prior contacts, like when you lived in New York?
I go back to a philosophy that I adopted many years ago. If you remember the movie Jerry Maguire,
Oh yeah.
the
Yep.
beginning scene where Jerry Maguire is going through this whole like, oh my gosh, I'm having this breakdown and this epiphany of what am I doing in this corporate America, and he refers back to and he says the late great Dickie Fox once said, and they show this old man sitting at a desk, very staunch, and he's put his hand. He goes, the key to this business is personal relationships, and that's it. I've put one ad out in a local magazine once. I've done some social media, but it's really about the personal relationships. It's getting to know your friends, their needs. It's getting to respect it. It's getting to become that trusted person. Again, I go back to some of my Catholic school days. I was training to be in the seminary. And one of the things that we know about priests is they have that seal of confession. I actually live that very carefully, where people tell me information and that's it. It stays there. It's confidential. And people have said that to me over and over again. Oh, thank God you didn't say anything when we were out at that party. I'm like, well, that's your business. I'm not, and so I pride myself in that people do trust me and they come to me. And that's where that counseling comes, where I used to counsel kids. And to be an effective counselor, you need to have established trust. And so that just only comes over time, remembering people's birthdays, remembering that they had a surgery, remembering that, that their neighbors are moving and they're feeling really sad and lonely. And you know what? I can make a visit to them. Or even that they have family coming in out of town or they're traveling and I drive by their property and send them a text message, say, hey, everything looks clear. I hope you're having a good vacation. People remember those things.
Hmm.
And it's those little things that have now added up. And I look at my grandfather when I, worked with him and he was that trusted person. He would come into his office and, I'd be like, oh my God, I thought we were going to be leaving, Grandpa. And it'd be like, well, 5 more minutes. And he would give that one lady a chance to tell her story and, and then help her get on the right path and then, work with them. So, it's just been in my blood, is create those relationships and, those who want to listen and hear the advice and the market research and the market data and want to use it to their advantage. They've done very well by me.
Hmm.
And, I'm very lucky to have a lot of great clients and repeat clients too now who've, they come back to you and say, oh, we're thinking about now selling the property that we bought. And, oh, great. Well, and let me hear the exciting things that you have in mind. And, getting excited with the clients, even though it was once a property I walked into and I thought, oh, no way. This is awful. And turn the corner and there's the wife like, oh my gosh, I love this. And I'm like, oh, so you have to, it's not what I wanted to live in. But it was what she was dreaming of when she described the window. She said, this is what I've always dreamed of in a bedroom. These types of windows right here. We don't know what people think. We don't know what makes them excited. And when we can be part of that process and share in the excitement, it's amazing. It really
Yeah.
is.
It warms your heart, right? It's like
Yeah, it
such a
does.
it's a satisfaction, right?
Yeah, yeah. People say work, but if you enjoy what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. And that's how I feel when I'm working with clients and I'm, helping them through and we get to the closing table and we, or they have their first welcome party and they're open their houses and, you say, oh wow, this is great. Remember when we walked here, it was empty and now you have all your furniture and you have pictures on your walls and it's great to be part of those milestones too, beyond the closing.
Hmm. So I got a question for you then, because a lot of our listeners they're not at your, I guess, for lack of better words, level yet, right? They're not where you are. And what would you say? I know networking sounds like it's the most valuable piece of advice that you could give, but where would you say an agent should go to maybe create the most impact for their business?
Start with a business plan.
Okay.
Start with your own business plan. What is your business goals for this month? What is your business goals for next week? What is your business goals for 2025? I went to the National Association of Property Managers, Residential Property Managers in Dallas back in October. I went last year. I was overwhelmed. And I thought this year, how do I go there and not be overwhelmed with all the vendors and all the exciting workshops and all the, I was feeding off of it. And this year I said, before I go, I'm going to put together my 2025 business plan. So I had to look at 2024 year to date and I used September as my end point. And I said, oh, look at this. I have a $180,000 business loss this year. Okay. I could sit there and cry. I could sit there and, blame, or I could sit there and figure out what to do. And so I had to readjust the types of properties I'm going to target now. I had to readjust the types of clients I'm going to work with. And I put that in a business plan, and it's a 24-page document. You can Google things. You don't have to spend money on it. You could just go Google and create it. ChatGPT has been my best friend, using it to your advantage. Put in your thoughts and ideas and say, hey, help me write something like a business plan. These are my ideas. And you'll be surprised at the prompts you'll get. For very little effort, you can do a lot. And once you have that plan, it's so important to stick with it with flexibility. And that's a comma, with flexibility. You don't want to then all of a sudden just jumping at the next shiny apple and the next shiny thing that comes your way, but you want to stay focused. And when people see you are in charge and you are focused and you share those goals, it's impressive to people because we live in a world of such uncertainty. So when you could provide that certainty, first of all, for your own business, what you wake up and do every day, but then for your clients that you serve, they will gravitate towards you. People want stability. And when you could provide that stability with your business plan, with your targeted marketing, with your, I'm not going to go all the way up to West Palm Beach to do a real estate deal, but I can certainly, through my networking now, give you a nice referral to somebody who I know would appreciate the business and know the local market. Why would I do a disservice to a client who says, I really want to move to West Palm? Okay, that's not my area. I'm not going to convince them to stay here in Fort Lauderdale, but I'm going to say, okay, if that's what you need to do to make your life situation work, I can connect you with somebody. And that's the power of networking and the relationships, because you never know. That person might say to their neighbor who's still here in Fort Lauderdale, we had a great realtor and we know him. And that's the benefit of creating these relationships and getting to know folks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it really kind of light bulb moment in my mind where you just talked about the business plan. You're not only talking about, hey, this is something we're going to write at the beginning of the year, but we're actually in a way following up and marking it and changing it like it's a diary. It's not just a document that's sitting in a box, right?
It's a living document. And I'm glad you said about changing. So right now we are using the December business plan for 2024. We're using that. We are already making changes into a January edition. So as we learn something new today, we're not going to change it in the December one. We're going to say, okay, now going forward, the next time we have this happen in our business, or the next time we hit this milestone, we're going to remember to email all our clients about this particular whatever the issue. And we build that right in. So now if we bring on a new team member, we have 4 virtual assistants that work with me. And they're in Mexico, Philippines, and Nigeria. So I manage a remote team. And if I bring on somebody new, I need to be able to provide them a blueprint, a roadmap of where we are. Especially if they jumped in, they don't know where we've started. They don't know our past. But with that documentation, they can see it very quickly and understand it. Mm-hmm. And then, be flexible that it could change as anything changes between market conditions will change. And that's what led me to a fee for service in 2025.
Hmm.
I've realized how many clients have left me, and we have not held them accountable to their cancellation fees just because we're nice people. But in business, you can be nice, but you also have to have firm boundaries. And so we're working towards more of a consultative, and we're working with our clients, with our listing clients, with those our buyers who are looking. We get those new agreements, and they are agreements. Get those in use, and we put together a consulting package for them. And anybody who works with me will pay a consulting fee. And when you get to successful closing, I personally, as one of my pledges to the clients who get to closing, I will refund and credit back what they've already paid in those consulting fees. If they decide to walk away halfway through and they decide because their nephew just got their license, they're going to now go use their nephew, and or their next door neighbor has a good deal and they go off to that realtor, I wish them well, but at least they've paid for my time. They've paid for my expertise. I've seen it happen too many times. We've had research done and sent them beautiful presentations, and only to get the termination. So I need to protect my business now as we move into 2025, and that was one of the big things in my business plan as we move forward.
Got it. Okay. So is that, if you could talk more about the consulting fee, so is that fee accepted up front, and then when you actually, if a scenario happens where you close, are you receiving the commission on top of the fee, or
No.
is it okay?
So if we were to get a $20,000 commission, let's say, or a $15,000 commission, I know you have to be careful about talking about pricing and stuff on these things, but it would just
Yeah.
use the $10,000 number, and you've paid me $150 a month for 3, 4, 5 months. I'm going to say, well, you know what? You paid me already for those services. Why should I be getting a commission on top of that? And I would offer that as a credit back, and we'll work that out at the closing. Of course, it all depends on the timing. It depends on a few factors, but people appreciate that. They say, you know what? I don't mind paying you for your services. You're essentially prepaying my commission because I need to make money, and you're also saying that you're going to get someone if someone is paying me to do something, my philosophy is work to get the job done.
Yeah.
So I have 7-day availability, not 24 hours a day, 7-day. And so I keep those boundaries, and I'm getting better at that. That's one of my own personal goals as shares. Don't worry about picking up the phone every single time it works. That's what voicemail is for. That's why they invented it.
Hmm.
Because sometimes you need to be present to your current customer in front of you. And it might be just because I'm researching for them. So we would definitely work with them. Obviously, commissions are all negotiable, and everything is fully negotiable. And that's where I sit down with the clients and I talk them through. And I say, okay, here's the value that you're going to get when you work with me. You're going to get someone who you can trust. You're going to have someone who has a drawer full of keys of non-clients. They're just friends and family, because people just trust me. They have second homes here, and I treat those keys just like my own keys. My home office is locked. When I have guests over, it's treated as, with respect. And, people see that translates into other transactions. They see that it's going to benefit them in the long run, when they can work with someone who understands not just getting to the closing, but understands that, well, what if we want an inspection, or what if we don't have time to get this all settled? And well, that's what modification forms are for. That's what addendums are for. And people don't even know some of these things that come their way.
Hmm.
When you're going to list a property, I tell you, let's go through. I'm gonna walk through the property. I'm gonna look, if I had a buyer right now, I'm gonna point out things that I want my buyer to be aware of. So I'm gonna tell you these things now, not to insult you, but to help you, because I know what buyers are looking for, and I know what's important in this neighborhood versus 3 miles away where something else might be very different. The dog parks are more important 3 miles away from where we are. But here, it's important that they're close to the restaurants and they're close to walking distance to the entertainment areas.
Hmm.
So knowing all the benefits of the different areas is so important too, so that you can match up the right people
Hmm.
with the right properties.
Yeah, and I know you service Fort Lauderdale. surrounding areas as well.
Yeah.
And okay. And where would you say is like the best way to get a hold of you if somebody needs your assistance, or I know you mentioned you have networks surrounding Florida. Um, what's the best way to get a hold of
Yeah,
you?
info@gillenpros.com. You can find us also on social media. We're beefing up our social media presence with the handle Gillen Pros, GILLENPROS.com. Not without the .com. Facebook and Instagram, and I'm also on LinkedIn, and I'm working on putting some more content out there in the new year to help folks, even if you're not sure you want to buy, rent, sell, whatever, but you might be thinking about what am I going to do in 3, 4 years when maybe I'm going to retire? Do I want to stay where I'm at? Do I want to downsize? Do I want to have room for the grandchildren? Do I want to have room for a work from home office? Do all these things, I do a free 30-minute consultation with anybody who wants. In fact, after I hang up from here, I'm having lunch with a old friend of mine, and we're gonna go through his desires for a 55 and older community.
Hmm.
So, it's a new market for me is with some familiarity, but now I got to see how does my knowledge benefit his situation. And so it's about listening now. So this is just about listening. And then we'll take it another step to do the research. And then, of course, the presentation of scenarios to help him make his decision. So yeah, we're definitely available. We're offering a holiday special. I'm not sending out holiday cards this year. I've just been so busy, but I'm going to send out a holiday greeting. So you're going to hear it first here. And in that holiday greeting, we're giving everybody a 30-minute consultation for themselves or to regift this year to someone else. So
Beautiful.
we all regift. So why not regift my gift? If you can't use it, give it to someone else, and you can look like a hero. And that's what we're working on.
Well, with the value you've provided, I know we've talked for half an hour and you've given so much just knowledge drops that are great, golden nuggets. So I really appreciate that. I know our listeners will as well. I know we are a newer podcast, so really, if any agents, if any people just in general, if you've seen some value or if, heard some value from John, please share with another agent so they can learn as well and become what John has become with building his beautiful business. And I know you guys can follow us anywhere at Agents with Grit. We're all over the podcast network, and I know with social media as well. But John, I really want to thank you again for providing just a ton of value on this. And it was really nice meeting you. And, I wish
Likewise.
you the best of success and continued growth within the Gillen Pros business. And, it's just great talking to you. And I really appreciate your time,
Thank you. I'm
John.
going to add you to my podcast, and I'll be listening when I do my morning walk. I get up at 5:30, 6 o'clock every morning. I do a morning walk, so
Oh,
uh,
I love it.
I
Okay, good,
selectively
good.
listen. So I have to. I'm very careful how you spend that time. So
Yeah,
I'll
I
add
know
you to my rotation for sure.
I've spoken to agents who, like you're working on with social media, same thing. They all have their different buckets that they focus on, have generated a lot of business from, and a common thread is networking.
Yes.
And you're clearly amazing at that, and it's clearly created a beautiful business for you. So.
Well, thank you. Appreciate you recognizing that.
Of course. Yeah. So thanks to all our listeners. Have a great rest of your day and looking forward to talking to you guys soon.